But welcome everyone to the May 13th Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting. We are meeting kind of in a hybrid format pursuant to MCL 15.263A1B, and we are calling the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Commissioners Skaggs. Here. Wooden.
Here.
Womack. Commissioner Womack.
Here.
Wilkowski.
Present.
LeGrand. Here. Hennessy. Commissioner Hennessy.
Here in Grand Rapids.
Commissioner McLeod.
Here, Kentwood, Michigan.
Sparks.
Present, Kentwood, Kent County, Michigan.
Teal. Here. Breeby.
Here.
Coleman. Here. Burl. Here. Ponstein.
Here, Granville, Michigan.
Vice Chair Steck.
Here.
Commissioners Jones. Commissioner Jones. Commissioners Morgan.
Here.
Antor.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan, where is your location, please, for the record?
I'm in Cortland Township.
Thank you. And Commissioner Antor.
Sparta Township.
Thank you. And Chair Bolter. Here. Madam Chair, you have 18 members present, 1 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to item 3 of our agenda, and I will call on Commissioner McLeod for our invocation.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I have just a quick scripture to share, and then I will do the invocation prayer. So I am reading today from Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 8 today. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones." This is a scripture that I take delight in and wanted to share with you all today. I also have a short prayer, so please bow your heads. God of wisdom, we seek your help today. Come and let your wisdom fall upon us. Oh Lord, as we gather for this meeting, give us clarity so that we can effectively tackle each part of today's agenda, reveal any problem areas, and show us the best solutions that will apply. Point our eyes to every positive outcome since our last meeting, and let these favorable results and developments encourage every heart in this room. God, help us apply your wisdom as we decide on certain matters and make plans. This we pray. Amen. Back to you, Madam Chair.
We are on to item 5 of our agenda, special order of business, and today we are welcoming Grand Action, John Nunn from Grand Action 2.0, Executive Director, John Katz, Principal with CSL, David Fry, Fry Foundation and former Board Chair, Brad Thomas, Progressive A&E and CEO. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. I think I'm up, Madam Chair.
All right.
David Fry here.
Good morning, David.
Good morning to all, and thank you for the invitation. I've been encouraged to comment briefly on why Grand Action. So I had to go back to about 1990 and suggest that at that year, the city and the metropolitan area particularly the core city, was stagnant, I would say wilting, and there had been no capital investments public or private since the mid-1960s when Vandenberg Center was developed. It's a 25-year span. Civic leadership was lacking. There's a significant vacuum. And then some would say that south of Fulton Street was unsafe after sunset. And just to characterize the general attitude and outlook, I think, of most people who love this great city and this county, I would say atrophy, apathy, and inertia were pretty prevalent in 1990. And civic pride was AWOL. So with that characterization, Grand Action was formed to evaluate and execute the new convention center and a new entertainment sports arena. But we formed Grand Action 1993 to fill the leadership void, to focus on the core city, to partner with the county and the city, and to conduct ourselves as if we were a public body with all the public outreach processes that is known to exist, but we were privately funded. So it was a combination of private funding, but conducting ourselves in a very public and open and outreaching manner. And our credo that we established at that time was to think boldly, plan collegially, and act with a sense of urgency. With those comments, I want to again thank the county for your past support for Grand Action. Your support of DeVos Place was absolutely critical to the success of a premier convention facility, which today, and since its construction, allows us to successfully compete nationally above our weight class for major conventions. And let me just cite a couple of statistics. That's in the 10 years ending in 2019, from 2009 to 2019, Grand Rapids Kent County hotel occupancy of the hotels has seen record-setting levels every single year up until the pre-pandemic. Hotel room revenue has grown from $100 million in 2009 to $226 million in 2019. That's pretty amazing, pretty impressive statistics by any standard. Now, as I mentioned, in 1993, Grand Action, shortly after its formation, announced its plans to build an entertainment and sports facility and a new convention facility. In the 25 years that followed, Grand Rapids would witness the construction of 5 facilities from 1993: the Van Andel Arena, DeVos Place Convention Center, a newly renovated Meyer Majestic Theater, which was the former 100-year-old Grand Rapids Civic Theater, the Michigan State University College of Human Medicine, and the Downtown Market. These 5 projects were completed at a construction cost of more than $420 million, of which more than $120 million was raised from private philanthropy. I must say, anecdotally, Grand Rapids is known for its generosity, for its compassion, and philanthropy was the glue that put this together, along with the city and county partnership. And I would add that the gifts in kind of the land underneath DeVos Place from the county and the city were the magic ingredients to put the project together and made the funding mix work. It actually added to the total funds raised, although not hard dollars, but gifts in kind, far above the $420 million of actual cash that we received to get the project completed. In 2016, Grand Action announced the findings and recommendations of a destination asset analysis and evaluation of existing community assets, the identification of opportunities for future development, and secondly, to identify opportunities to elevate our market visibility within the visitor and convention industry. This study was completed by CSL International. John Cass will speak to us momentarily, a company that provides consulting services to the convention, sports, entertainment, and visitor industries. and they are very, very highly regarded. And John and his team have done an exceptional job for us in this in the last 5 years, particularly. A year later, it was determined that none of the prospective projects were at a juncture where Grand Action leadership was needed, and coupled with the unfortunate passing of John Canepa, one of our co-chairs, Grand Action suspended its operation, but recognized there may be an opportunity in the future to re-engage, and that's exactly what has happened. So in the spring of 2020, at the encouragement of many voices in the community, Grand Action 2.0 announced its reorganization and re-engagement of CSL, John Katz, for updates on the three highest ranked priorities identified in the original study: convention center expansion, an amphitheater, and a soccer arena, with also a significant discussion about a new hotel. Earlier this year, Grand Action retained the 2.0 retained the services of Populous, a national, actually international, urban design and planning firm who partnered with Progressive AE, Brad Thomas, who's with us this morning, to conduct a study to help create a vision for the future development of the 30 acres on the east bank of the Grand River from Fulton Street to Market, from Fulton Street to Welty Street, also known as 201 Market. The development options for consideration include a multi-use amphitheater, secondly, a soccer venue, also a mixed-use entertainment district, residential housing, significant residential housing, which we'll talk a little bit about. It's a big piece of this complicated puzzle. Retail, outdoor recreation, and a signature green space. Now, the presentation today represents the findings and recommendations of the Market Avenue Corridor Study, and I think you'll find it very fascinating. This is a project, let me add, that is of national importance. It's the largest project of its scale and impact probably in the country today. John Katz can speak very knowingly because he tours the country and beyond, actually, and can opine knowingly about the scale of this project, the impact, not just on metropolitan Grand Rapids, but on the other cities of our size who will be looking to Grand Rapids as an example of how to do it, how to overcome the hurdles, how to make it happen, how to make urban living and this metropolitan area in Kent County the show place that it is and it continue to be. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Yeah, thank you, David. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody. As David mentioned, we looked most recently at three fairly large projects: the convention industry, an opportunity for professional soccer, and I think as interesting, if not more interesting than the others, this notion of an amphitheater that would be located on the riverfront. And we conducted a great deal of market research to kind of vet the concept, and pretty quickly came to the notion that an amphitheater by itself, while interesting, is not as interesting as what becomes a larger riverfront development. As a matter of fact, we actually went so far as to recommend combining the privately owned Fulton site and the publicly owned 201 Market site to create an even larger parcel to really create a riverfront destination. And to test that concept, we conducted a tremendous amount of outreach, not just to promoters of concerts, certainly that's important, but also to the neighborhoods and Grand Valley State. We talked to Hispanic Chamber and Urban League and brought in many community representatives to talk about what not just the amphitheater, but that entire site could mean for the broader community throughout Western Michigan. One of the things we recognized fairly quickly is, the size of the parcel, the proximity to downtown Grand Rapids, the progress that Grand Rapids has made regionally in terms of economic development, and with what's happening with the riverfront creates what we think really is one of the most dynamic development opportunities nationally. This is something that's going to show up on the radar screen of developers across the country, if not internationally. So we see this project, when you infuse the community needs, when you talk about economic development needs, certainly the amphitheater, we really began to view this as an opportunity for the community. Let's just start there. This is something that the entire region can enjoy. And then let's broaden that to economic development. Obviously, talking with Birgit, formerly with The Right Place, she reminded us that when they bring a company to relocate to the entire region, one of the first things they do is bring them downtown to show them kind of the heart of the region. And her view is that this project could spur economic development throughout the region. Sorry about that. I'm actually at an airport traveling for one of the first time, so a little bit of noise there. And lastly, the opportunity is for the visitor industry. This will help bring new visitors to the community, spurring hotel development. That entire area begins to develop in a very, very positive way. So in a nutshell, what started as an amphitheater project on a river became a economic development opportunity that has national implications and then regional implications for economic development for the community and definitely for the visitor industry. So we're really, really excited about what's come out of this. And as David mentioned, Populous came in, working with Brad Thomas at Progressive, to create that vision that will now launch us to the next level of creating something on the river that's truly to be a proud feature for the entire destination. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad. David, unless you've got any other comments, and let him walk us through a presentation to show you what this vision is starting out as.
Thank you, John. I'm going to share my screen here. People can let me know if you can see that. Maybe a thumbs up, John Katz. Can you see that? Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. I'm going to take about normally what is an hour presentation, distill it down to 10 minutes or less. So I'm going to move quickly in respect of your time. But as a result of that, if you've got questions, we'll be happy to answer those at the end. First thing I'd like to talk about, normally when we talk about this opportunity, this project, we normally orient people. And of course, I know I don't need to do that, given I'm talking to the Kent County Board of Commissioners this morning. But a couple of things I would like to just highlight on this screen. And one is the scale of the site that we're talking about. You can see in the image of our downtown, if you look at the scale of the distance from the Michigan Street north of the convention center all the way down to Fulton, is about the same size and area of the site that we're looking at. The site itself, a combined site, is about 31 acres. And then just one other thing I'd like to maybe point out here, most of you are likely aware of this already, but as John mentioned, one of the elements we'll be talking about is an amphitheater. And one thing I think we hear on a regular basis is how well our arena does. In like-sized cities, we continuously rank above or beyond our class. And part of the reason for that is when we look at the music touring industry, we are uniquely positioned between Detroit and Chicago, and the touring music industry has a run that runs between those two destinations. And given where we are, our arena is very easily added as an additional stop along that path, and all of the data suggests that the summer shows that currently don't come to our area would also take benefit of this. The next thing I'd like to point out, and probably one of the most transformational things I think we're going to experience in the next a decade or two, is going to be the work that's going on with the Grand Rapids River Restoration Project, Grand Rapids Whitewater. Again, I know most are very familiar with what is proposed. Again, one of the things I like to point out, and I hope I get this statistic right, but when I look from what I understand with respect to that restoration project, the vertical elevation change in the river from, I believe, 6th Street, but we'll say Leonard Avenue down to Fulton is approximately 16 feet. And to give you a point of reference, the vertical fall from Fulton out to Lake Michigan, some 35 miles, is a total of 4 feet. So the amount of energy right now that is going to be released when the restoration project is completed is going to be significant, and it'll be just a wonderful change and transformation of our city with the noise and the activity. And where this site is located is at the end of that active run or stretch of the Whitewater. And so again, when we talk about opportunities to engage this site, certainly the role of Whitewater opportunity from an active use of the river to engage at this site is important. John, I'm sorry for flipping the slides here, they're moving a little quicker. John already mentioned the outreach. It was significant that the consultant team did. First thing they looked at was all of the work that had already been done. We've touched on the destination asset study, sort of the, I guess, the foundation related to how do we continue to invest in the community and the resultant be sort of the tourism and economic impact that these kinds of venues have. Another major piece of planning work that our community has done is the River for All. It was done in collaboration with DGRI, the City of Grand Rapids, and really what it did is it focused on the river and looked at it as the asset that it is, but like many communities and cities who were developed initially using it more in a utilitarian capacity, they really haven't celebrated and to some degree have turned their back to the river. And what the River for All did is it really looked at how do we as a community engage the river, change it from hardened edges that were put in place really as more of a means to protect real estate assets from flooding, meeting requirements of FEMA and the like, to this tremendous asset that it is to create areas where the public can engage, interact, and really it presented approaches to planning around River's Edge that would then again celebrate the asset that it is. Whitewater I've already touched on, and then another significant study the city's undertaken is this idea of or understanding of our housing needs. In the 2019 housing study the city completed identified some, I believe, 4,500 need for 4,500 housing units in the urban core. So again, recognizing that as the planning work was beginning. Significant outreach, some 26 separate one-on-one engagements with various stakeholders, and then as John indicated, some very purposeful community outreach to diverse populations to make certain that what we do is inclusive of all of our residents in the community. I won't go into the details of this slide. It really summarizes the amount and the frequency of the feedback and information and ideas we heard through the public engagement process. The size of the box represents how often we heard it. So again, this idea in the top left corner, activation, access, views to a river. And the other one in the middle we thought was really rich was the idea of opportunities for a minority or small businesses to engage. You know, perhaps some of these companies that might have a virtual presence, a website, potentially be able to come in and set up some temporary shop during certain festivals and events and things like that. Just a glimpse of what exists today. Again, looking at the overall study site, it ran from Fulton all the way down to just south of Wealthy, some 31 acres. A major impediment to this site, I apologize before I jump into that, current occupancies on the northern portion, the private property is largely just a surface parking lot and Charlie's Crab down to the highway. South of the highway, it's primarily City of Grand Rapids. Public works facilities, salt storage dome, maintenance, fleet maintenance facilities, things like that. A major impediment to development on these sites over the years has been this major, what's known as the East Side trunk sewer that runs actually from under Plaza Towers all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant. There is a project underway now, a public-private partnership between the private parties, the City of Grand Rapids, and the CAA as a result of a grant towards the amphitheater project to commence the relocation of that trunk sewer into Wealthy. The first phases have been bid and will be under construction shortly, running from Fulton down to the railroad tracks. So again, helping you understand and see the scale of the study area. So jumping to the end and sort of sharing out of the gate the vision, then we're going to break this down into elements. But this is the master plan that likely, you know, we would say it's more of a framework, you know, designed purposefully with flexibility, but intended to communicate the essence of long-term development. This might be something that could take 20 or 25 years to accomplish. One of the things that sort of jumps off the page when I look at this image is the amount of green on the page. And again, that represents the open space, public space, places where people can engage and collect. Another unique asset to this location and site is Jackson Island, this small island in the center of the river. And part of the question the design team engaged around was how might we engage that in a unique way, not only perhaps for respite for kayakers coming down the river, but then also potentially for some active uses. While there's a lot of green space, it's all been planned somewhat differently to provide variety of opportunity and access to all. On the southern end, as we look down here, there's sort of an idea that this could be sort of an active attraction area, a seasonal, recognizing Michigan and Grand Rapids has all seasons. How might these spaces be available and used in all of our seasons so that folks can enjoy them year round? The active areas could have things like ice skating, potential rock climbing, possibly even a zip line out to the island. You'll see, and I'm going to talk about this idea of a green ribbon circulation along the riverfront that stretches beyond the boundaries of the site, connecting into existing bicycle and pedestrian paths. Amphitheater, again, key linkages, not just north and south along the riverfront, but also connecting the east and west banks together. Another critical element was this discussion of how do we connect the northern portion and the southern portion of this site, given we have the interstate that runs through it. And one of the ideas, certainly we would connect under the overpass, but opportunities to go above it as well. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we look at some of these subsequent slides. I mentioned the green ribbon, this connector along the waterfront, and we've sort of envisioned this undulating green space. I think some precedent imageries that the design team drew inspiration from was for those that are familiar with the High Line in New York City. And not only does it provide just a wonderful public engagement place, it also provides tremendous economic value. The properties that front that, real estate values are higher, the economic activity at ground floor along it is significant. So again, this idea of ongoing thoroughfares available throughout all seasons. The connections across the river, Grand Valley State University is just on the west bank of the river, connecting to and through the site and more deeply into the adjacent neighborhoods. The idea that was discussed was what if we have this massive S-curve bridge over the river, and some of the discussion about the experience is your kayak coming down under that bridge. What if there were a pedestrian bridge that was sort of hung or slung from that underpass? Certainly creates some interest and a wonderful way to navigate for pedestrians and bicycles and the like. Some of the precedent imagery for those that are familiar in Chicago, the pedestrian bridge that goes over Lakeshore Drive. Again, the idea of connecting and really eliminating the barrier between locations. Down at the southern end, talked about this idea of an active park. Again, some of the precedent imagery, the idea this probably would not be the location or the terminus of Whitewater, but it certainly could be a location of respite. This image from Tulsa sort of represents the idea of a kayak locker. You're coming down, you want to stop, potentially have a picnic, maybe take a short walk, a block to Founders, and then make your way back down to the river for the rest of your trip. The idea, again, drawn from sort of rock climbing walls to zip lines, but again, active areas to engage with the waterfront. Of course, we've talked about amphitheater, the scale of venue that's currently being evaluated is about a 12,000 seat venue. Approximately 6,000 to 8,000 covered. The balance are more open lawn seating. The idea of how is the lawn or the green space portion of this venue available during non-event periods? Again, multi-season. Could it be a sledding hill or something in the winter months? So again, how does it get planned and programmed and integrated into into the park and open space elements of the plan. Again, precedent imagery, and for those that have been to Nashville, downtown Nashville, the Sand Amphitheater, a very similar waterfront setting where they've done a wonderful job integrating music performance with the park and amenity. And the last, and really significant element, David mentioned the amount of housing. This was a significant area of focus, and really a lot of discussion about the symbiotic relationship between housing and amenity. There's a lot of discussion right now, and we heard a lot about it, sort of in this sort of post-COVID era, where there have been people that have moved from some of the more densely populated and developed communities into communities like Grand Rapids, and the idea of big city amenities without the congestion, and development like this integrating housing into sort of these park-like and active areas were considered real assets and benefits. Just again, these were some images that were created, truly artist renderings, not of what is proposed here, but of what could be it, where they were created at a time when we were trying to cast a vision of what something like an amphitheater on the waterfront might look like. But again, showing the softening of the edge, where we still provide flood protection, but do it in a way where people can have access to the water. Opportunities again for kayaks and folks to stop and enjoy, and then the potential for what it might look like to be spending a summer evening sitting on the lawn at the amphitheater, listening to music on the water, as we have spoken. So with that, I will pause and then answer. Let me stop sharing my screen, and we'll answer any questions that you all might have.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciated it. Can you guys hear me? Any questions from commissioners today? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Wow, I'm seeing a lot here, and I'm seeing what's going to be a tremendous amount of expense to someone. I was wondering who's paying for this. Do you have a kind of a breakdown on where the money's going to be coming from?
David, if you're speaking, you're on mute right now.
Mr. Fry, you're on mute. If you could unmute, or if we could unmute him. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay, two comments. One is Brad did a great job, and Progressive's been a great partner in this process. It's a concept. You have to be careful not to interpret it as too literal. And Brad, correct me when I don't say it quite right, but I think it's a concept in terms of horizontal density, verticality, placement, so on and so forth. It's one of several concepts. So you have to be a little bit cautious not to walk away from the meeting and think this is the definite plan. It's a complicated funding mix, to answer the question. And the city has a major voice and role in how all these pieces fit together, because the north site from 131 north of Fulton Street is privately owned by Amway and the Amway families, and the south site from 131 S curve south to Wealthy Street is out of the city, 201 Market. So it's a complicated funding package. All the pieces are not yet in place. The land will, in theory, will be sold to various parties, and including the acreage allocated to the amphitheater, which will be, in theory, sold to Grand Action for a price that's estimated but not certain, and private developers will probably purchase other parcels for development of low, mid, or high-rise housing units. So that it's a work in progress, a lot of moving parts, and the final numbers have not been set, but the property has been appraised and reappraised, so the city knows the value that it believes that it is value that it has, and I would say it's too early to to state exactly the prices for the various parcels because parcels have different value depending on their location and proximity to Market Street. So, one street or another. So I would say probably I should stop there and just say it is complicated. There are big numbers and stay tuned because at the right time, those numbers will all be public.
Yeah, I would just add, having done these projects across the country, one thing I noticed about the Grand Rapids entire market area is they seem to find a way to get things done. Just the development David talked about earlier is really amazing. So I see this as a combination of the foundations providing money, certainly the public sector contribution, and then a massive amount of private sector development, particularly with the housing.
If I could follow up, Chair.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know Whitewater's been mentioned a couple times in this presentation. That too is a concept. And I remember when they first started talking about it, when I first came on, that was going to be about a $4 or $5 million project. The reality is that was definitely wishful thinking and certainly a concept because the actual cost now is going to be exceeding $50 million. And the problem I see with this project is, we're here, we're receiving the information from you guys, and I don't remember having any place at the table during this. And I'm expecting there will be a price tag coming down or an ask from Kent County, and yet this is the first we've seen this. It seems like everything's in place, but our county board has had no access to anything. And we're told this is it. So I'm wondering if you guys had looked outside of Grand Rapids at all. I personally know of a 100-acre parcel that would be a perfect amphitheater. It's actually shaped. It's got the geography. It's perfect. And there's been talk about moving amphitheater up there. It would cost a fraction of what this is going to cost. I understand it may not be as sexy because it's not downtown, but Kent County makes up a lot more than just the city of Grand Rapids. So those are concerns I have. I feel like this is a little bit of like Whitewater project where, there's the great unknown of what's it actually going to look like and what our cost is going to be. And if we're expected to participate regarding the revenue for this thing, I feel like we're kind of being boxed into a corner. And if you want to react to that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. You guys have done a lot of work. I mean, absolutely a fabulous looking project, but as the gatekeepers to the public trust and, that money, that taxpayer dollars is really precious to us. And we want to make sure we're spending it in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Breve.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. This project looks really exciting. The graphics are great, and I, would really hope that it can come to fruition. I'm curious, how dependent is this on the Whitewater project coming to fruition?
Yeah, I don't see it dependent on that. I mean, the two projects kind of marry together amazingly well. As a matter of fact, if you're coming down Whitewater, this site provides an opportunity to get out, maybe walk over to Founders. So there are some interactions that we think are kind of the 1 + 1 = 3, but none of the development that we've talked about is dependent on Whitewater. Whitewater is simply kind of an added feature that as we talk to the representatives of Whitewater, they think it will happen. But if it doesn't, or if it's delayed, it shouldn't hurt this project.
Let me add to John's comments that we are very mindful of the role of Whitewater, and with the 50-foot green swath along the river's edge is designed to speak very clearly to the Whitewater project and its importance to the whole region. And so we are actually working with Whitewater to a considerable extent to accommodate their needs and access and egress for kayaks and other private boats, kayaks, whatever is going to go down the river from, say, Ann Street south. We're working with the Whitewater to determine where the best places to take out those kayaks and whatever else are. Those have not yet been decided, but we are very mindful of the role of Whitewater. We're trying to be a good partner with Whitewater along with other critical partners in the region.
Yeah, and I would add, Tom, to your point earlier, that as much work as has been done, this is really, really conceptual. As a matter of fact, the next steps are going to be actually retaining an architect to look more closely at amphitheater. We actually also looked at alternative sites, and there are some strengths and weaknesses to various sites, certainly. And then also retain a landscape architect to do the green space planning. And during that process, that's the really deep dive to find out what works, what doesn't work. And certainly, I think the plan would be to reach out again broadly to the community, including members of this body, to make sure their voices are heard. But again, just some initial conceptual work done so far, as you've seen, and then a lot of heavy lifting to do before this actually happens.
Great.
I want to go back to a comment about the communication between Grand Action and the county. We will meet with the county or any committee of the county whenever it's appropriate, whenever you would like to discuss this project in more detail. We're at a very limited time slot this morning. I think we may have already exceeded it, but having said that, this project is a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of working partners involved. So there's been no intention to not be inclusive to the county, and to the extent there's some feeling that's been true that's not the Grand Action way we do business. And we are available at any time to meet with the county to discuss this project whenever and wherever.
Great, thank you. We have several more questions, so we would like to get through them if possible. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, I appreciate this presentation this morning, David. I've worked with Grand Action on a number of projects over the years and always found them to be pretty diligent in their prospects and their planning. My question is, you mentioned that there's some city-owned property and privately held property in this footprint.
Correct.
Is that in the DDA district at all? Is all this property within the DDA district?
I believe it is.
David, I believe the portions on the northern part of the site are, meaning north of Fulton. I'm sorry, between Fulton and the freeway. I'm not certain that the portions of the site south of the freeway on Market are currently within the boundaries of the DDA.
Well, as we move along, I would appreciate just trying to get my head around, the location and some of these, what the city owns and what's privately owned and what's in the DDA district and what's outside. If you could provide that to me, I'd really appreciate it, David.
We will do it. Consider it done. Roger, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, look, specifics aside, I think this is an incredibly impressive project. It sure beats housing salt and snowplows on some prime real estate on the river, and really appreciate the work that you put into it. Just two quick questions or comments. One, I also really want to relay my appreciation for the discussions about a public park and the green ribbon, and I certainly agree with Mr. Fry about the real importance of the river's edge. Most people will, encounter river restoration without getting wet. They're mostly going to look at it from the riverbank. My question would be, there's the words I've heard is free and clear and access. What is what guarantees or what ownership guarantees do we have that the access to the river's edge would be fully available to the public? And then my second question would be, just to echo Commissioner Antor, obviously a great amount of work has been done, 26 engagements in the community certainly is significant, but I think it would have been nice if we had heard about this in an official way earlier, although again, I appreciate Mr. Fry's willingness going forward to make sure that the county is fully at the table. So that part is not really a question, but just a sense of what's the ownership and what's the some details on the plans for what to do with the section that was a public park and a green ribbon and along the river's edge.
I can answer part of that question. The city of Grand Rapids is currently in a process, as you may know, of looking at how to parcel that piece of property that they own. And the current plans that I've seen developed, the city is retaining a minimum of a 50-foot strip that runs along the water's edge all the way from, the limits of their property, from the north edge up against 131 all the way down to at least the railroad tracks. And so that would be my understanding, is their intent is to connect that, provide access to it specifically for that purpose of access to the water's edge.
And do we think?
Let me weigh in briefly on that and expand on Brad's comments. Access in these 50-foot swath along the river's edge will be for walking, jogging, bicycling, whatever. It's purely conceptual at this point, but it's an absolute sort of commitment to the city and to the public that we'll have a public swath there for all kinds of river-friendly activities or river-related activities. With that said, the one big issue which has not been addressed yet by Whitewater because they've been so preoccupied with permitting, the complications of permitting, is the fact of where are the best places on the east or west side of the river for access and egress of kayaks or other river vehicles that will be in the river once the Whitewater project is complete. So, some people will just want to take a kayak from Ann Street, I'm just making this up, down to Fulton Street, which is basically the 18-foot fall rate or 19-foot fall rate. It levels out from there all the way down to Lake Michigan. So, but others will want to take a 2-hour trip. So there'll be several in and out access and egress points. Those have not yet been identified because it has significant traffic issues that are attendant with that as to how you get to pick up the various commercial kayaks, return them to their northern position where they can be reused. But we're talking about several hundred kayaks a day. So it's a large issue, and the timing is coming close at hand to really start to identify more specifically where these access egress points are, which side of the river, and what roads will be best used to transport them back to their point of origination.
We have a few more questions, so we'd like to try to keep our responses a little shorter if possible. Commissioner Volkowski.
I'm not hearing that.
Your mic on. Is your mic on?
I think so. Commissioner Volkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I don't know if people saw my comment in the chat. I do know for certain that the DDA boundaries do go all the way to Wealthy Street. Having walked that stretch of Market as part of a accessibility review, disability advocates completed for the DDA. That being said, my comment is just one to say the excitement of this further development of our downtown, and the additive effect or multiplying effect of bringing these amenities together. To Commissioner Antor's point, yeah, there's a lot of places an amphitheater could go. I'm old enough to remember that where the Cascade Mire is, that's where somebody wanted to build an arena. And an arena was popped all around. This was like in the 1970s. The arena being downtown Grand Rapids has really helped, as Mr. Fry noted, really helped, launch downtown as a regional, as in Midwest destination from the downtown arena, which then got excitement for a downtown convention center. So all these things come together as opposed to being spread all over the place. And the further out we go, the less equitable it is, in the sense that People still can't get to what is now Lake Michigan Credit Union Ballpark by public transportation because it's in a township that doesn't participate in other than the bare minimums for only people with disabilities during the workday. So all that being said, I really think this is exciting. I definitely understand that there's a lot of work behind these pictures. At the same time, there's a lot more work that needs to be done to get us to the proverbial shovels in the ground and an awesome, accessible addition to our whole region. So that's all I got, and looking forward to those much larger conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to add one comment. The placement of the Van Andel Arena was a enormously catalytic event for the city and for the county. A lot of cities, like Auburn Hills, built there's arena out in Auburn Hills off of a cloverleaf, and it's now been demolished. And the Pistons moved back downtown, and I've been to several concerts there, some basketball games. It was a great design. Rossetti actually designed it, and it was a great facility. But as it turns out, people do want to be in urban settings. And the catalytic event of a facility like the Van Andel Arena, or its ilk, can't be underestimated in an urban setting. Placement has a lot to do with the success, not just of the facility, but what goes on around it.
Thank you. We have a few more questions, so we'd like to keep everyone's comments a little briefer if possible. Commissioner Steck.
Walter, first of all, thank you to the team at Grand Action 2 for bringing us current on this development. And I certainly concur that this is a far more inspirational use of our waterfront than its current use. I have and I'm sure that there'll be lots more questions, and as was suggested, this is a long-term evolution, probably a matter of decades. I'd have two questions if you can quickly respond to that. One is, as I understand the current plan, there are really only two publicly owned components of it anticipated. One is that the park, the 50-foot spread, or that component of it, and the other is the amphitheater. Are there other anticipated public components of it?
Well, the parkland would be, I would think, but and actually ownership is still up for discussion, and a lot of research is being done as to whether we should create an authority or a conservancy, or should it be it could be a county park. It could be a state park, it could be a city park. And so there's lots of work to do, and we welcome any, input from the county as to what role they might want to play in some of these public parcels.
Okay, so.
I would say broadly speaking, it's the amphitheater and the green space as it engages the river, as it engages the street. Anything that's public use along those lines certainly will be a public project. And then as far as ownership, I know there's a lot of discussion of some sort of riverfront authority or something like that could steward that development and maintenance. And then the housing and probably some of the retail would be private.
Okay, so then quickly, this follow-up question is, who are the decision makers? What is the decision-making body going forward with respect to what will be the approved uses of all the components?
Well, in part is this. Go ahead. Who was that? The city's obviously going to have a major voice in many of the decisions, particularly as it relates to housing, but because that is one of the primary focuses. As Brad mentioned, we need 4,000 to 5,000. Study's been done. The city needs 4,000 to 5,000 housing units over the next few years, and this site could well provide, let's just say, 1,500 to 1,750 housing units, depending on density and verticality. So those two issues are still up for discussion. And but I would say the city's going to have a strong voice in it. Grand Action will have a voice, particularly as it relates to the amphitheater, which has been our primary focus. But I would just remind, all these studies are being underwritten by Grand Action, privately funded, but all conducted in a very public manner.
Yeah, and I think there's some very preliminary discussions going on now as to how this, I'll call it a riverfront authority. I'm not sure what it should be called, but it would involve the city. I would imagine the county would have representation. DGRI is involved, so Grand Valley State, they're kind of right there. So I think there's a number of community entities that would be involved in structuring how we go forward. But those are very early discussions.
Thank you. We have 3 more commissioners who would like to ask questions, and then we're going to move on. Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. It's really tempting to really get caught up in all the excitement of all these projects. And I'm not sure exactly where to begin because, the 26 groups that you've had encounters with, have you actually talked to any of the official neighborhood organizations here in the area in terms of how it might affect them and the impact on their neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think I don't have the list, but we had 4 separate community neighborhood stakeholder group sessions. And they focused on how does this impact them? How does this benefit them, both from a use perspective, from a design perspective, and from a business perspective. I think David mentioned earlier, or Brad mentioned earlier, the ability for community stakeholders, community businesses to be part of this. So there was I would say, a very robust initial outreach to the neighborhoods as this plan developed. And that's where the momentum and the impetus came for maintaining the green space, maintaining the riverfront access. That's been kind of a prime goal for all of this. And a lot of that came from these neighborhood stakeholder outreach groups.
Okay, I appreciate hearing that. The amphitheater is one that I think about a lot because sound, is multidimensional. It travels everywhere. You showed the pictures of the Ascend Amphitheater in Nashville, and talk about green space. It's in a 150-acre park. My husband and I decided we would see what this other urban amphitheater looks like. So we took a trip there about a month ago, and it's only about half the size, a little bit more than half the size of what's being proposed here. It is an 150-acre park, and those tall buildings you see behind it are Bank of America and Pinnacle Center. So it's not in where there's going to be housing, where people will be, who are trying to live, to work and to go to school and to, try to sleep sometime, are going to, be affected by the sound that might come from an amphitheater. So I think that's something that can be explored a lot as we move this thing forward. And, you may look at it and be taken by the green space, but I look at it and see all these really tall buildings and the shadows and possible wind tunnels. And I think about the people who are going to be trying to live there and wonder about them, quite a bit, and how this will impact really what will be their day-to-day lives, and even the people across the river on the farther west side of the city, how it will impact them. And I think these are all things that we can continue to explore, but it does concern me, and I will be paying attention. And the other thing is, where are people going to park? It's the other thing. When I look at the little sketch of green and buildings, I don't see parking. And how do you bring 12,000 people into an amphitheater downtown with the parking? And I have, and when it comes to Whitewater, I have a fisherman behind my back here who's saying, with that many canoes traveling the river, how are fishermen going to have access?
That last issue is a delicate one, because there are people who want to fish for salmon, and actually there'll be more fishing activity after the Whitewater is returned to its original state. And I don't have the answer to that, except I think there'll be a high sensitivity to the needs of the fishermen and fisher persons who want to do that at the same time, and we'll have to figure out how to make that happen, because no one has exclusive rights to the river.
2 more commissioner questions. Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I have one comment and one question. First of all, my comment, I love the idea of opening up the river, and I just want to speak to the comment that perhaps this could be a county park, and say that given that this is going to be a regional destination and hopefully a regional green space, I would really love to see the county get involved in that. The Millennium Park has been spoken of as our urban park, but it's actually not that easy to get to, and this would provide such immediate access to so many people just who are working downtown or people who are living in the area, that I think, and visitors, that I really want to speak in favor of that. My question involves the scale of the amphitheater, and I'm wondering how that interacts with current, the Meyer Gardens Amphitheater, which has been a very successful series, and also the acts that would be going to the arena. I'm sure you've done some kind of, study on that, and I wonder what you can share with us.
Yeah, with respect to Meyer, their capacity is probably 2,000-ish in that range. And so we're really looking at events that are much larger than that. With respect to the arena, we have talked to arena management in detail, and they're very bullish on the notion of, and this is true nationally, that there are outdoor amphitheater tours. Many of the artists during the summer season prefer the outdoor experience. So they see relatively little cannibalization of the arena business. 1 or 2 events a year, but talking to Rich McKeegan, he sees this as net new concert and entertainment business to the community as opposed to a competitive situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And lastly, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Could, if not, it's fine. Could the previous slide in the presentation about outreach and the size of the requests elevating their prevalence in the discussions be brought back up?
Yes, thank you.
The previous, one more. There we go. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. So, I looked at this and it definitely popped something out that there were a lot of things in here that were not originally the generation, at least that I thought about when people talked about this site, right? Most of us, when we're associating Grand Action's discussions, they've been the amphitheater, they've been the soccer venue, they've been the river access, which certainly was prevalent, but as I'm looking here, I'm seeing things about local minority-owned pop-up restaurants and shops, economic opportunities, additional programs and amenities, and the accessible green spaces, which we've talked about. And when you combine this with also the fact that while our original investment in stadiums and entertainment facilities certainly proved a strong return, as was alluded to, that's not always the case, and sometimes there are some investments that may have greater returns. And my question is, as this is appearing as a holistic project, what kind of guarantees are we also placing for some of the other goals that we've referenced here around mixed income housing and local minority owned pop-up restaurants and supporting black and brown owned businesses and other economic investments that are even more complex and precarious sometimes than stadium investments that are harder to accomplish, as we've seen time and time again. And my concern, the reason I'm asking this is my concern is often those values and aspirations fall short because they are harder to accomplish. And when these seem so prevalent and also are difficult in themselves and require their own forms of investment, what are we doing now to ensure that that remains part of this holistic plan?
Yeah, I'll just chime in real quickly. Certainly, we're at a very conceptual stage. And at that stage, what you're trying to do is create what I'll call foundational pillars. What are the fundamental values that we have as we go into this project? And everything you just described, Commissioner, is perfect. And that's loud and clear what we heard from the neighborhoods as well. And it's been a huge part of Grand Action's goal for many, many years. So what I think we've done successfully is put that marker in the ground right now from a conceptual standpoint, from an aspirational standpoint, that those have to be achieved. You're absolutely right. The devil's in the details. And as these stages go by, it's kind of incumbent on all of us, certainly everybody on this call, to continue to press for that. And when we say that, we're talking about business opportunities. We're talking about programming at the amphitheater. We're talking about pricing. Not everybody can afford a $75 ticket. So all of these elements need to be incorporated on a go-forward basis. And I can just say it's just simply in all of our interests and all of our responsibility to continue to push those fundamental principles.
Yeah, I would only echo that in the sense that this truly is a master plan. It's over parcels of land that are owned by different entities, and that will likely be the case as it continues to be parceled out. But like most good planning documents, what this does is serves as a framework of a vision that we want to accomplish, and as decisions are made by those bodies that make those decisions, as as they move to more detailed planning to actual projects, this is the test that we come back to say, have we incorporated these things that we set out as planning principles at the onset?
Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap this up. We really, really appreciate your presentation today. I think it really enlightened our board on kind of future plans. I'll just make a comment that the county has always been a great partner with Grand Action, or was in the past, and we'd love to really continue that. And I would encourage everyone that is at that table to really kind of pull up and look at this regionally in terms of collaboration of resources and assets. The county has assets out at Millennium Park that could be connected. There are other areas other ways we could connect everything. So I would really encourage Grand Action to really explore that and continue to strengthen our partnership. So with that, we thank you again. We're going to move on to item 6 of our agenda, public comment related to the agenda item. Natasha, do we have anyone in the email?
Let's see. I see a message in our public comment email inbox, but it is for general public comment, so nothing right now.
We'll save that till the end. Any other hands raised in public comment today?
And no hands are raised.
All right, we'll move on to item 7, consent agenda, and I will call on Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we adopt the consent agenda for May 13, 2021 to be adopted.
Moved by Commissioner McLeod, support by Commissioner
Brevy.
Polkowski.
Brevy. Questions or comments on the consent agenda today? See no hands raised. I see no hands raised here. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Skaggs. Yes. Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Bulkowski. Commissioner Bulkowski.
Was that me? Yes.
Commissioners LeGrand. Yes. Hennessy.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yeah.
Teal. Yes. Brevy.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Ponstein. Commissioner Ponstein. Sorry, Commissioner, was that Commissioner Ponstein?
That was, Commissioner Ponstein is on his phone.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jones. Commissioners Morgan.
Yes.
Antor.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to resolutions, and I will call on Commissioner Antor for Resolution 8A.
All right, I'd like to move resolution, it's jumping in front of me. 5/13 of today's date.
Moved by Commissioner Antor, support by Commissioner
Support by Wooden.
Wooden. Questions or comments on Resolution 42? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 42, Commissioners Skaggs.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Teal. Yes. Brevy. Yes. Coleman. No. Burl.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jones. Commissioners Morgan.
Yes.
Antor. Commissioner Antor.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 17 yeas, 1 nay. The motion passes. Resolution 42 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to 8B of our agenda, and I will call on Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, Resolution B, I move the Board of Public Works appointment.
Moved by Commissioner Burrow, support by Commissioner
Support by Green.
Green. Support by Commissioner Green. Questions or comments on Resolution 43 today? You good?
I'm good. I believe Commissioner Ponstein has already shown up for the meeting.
I don't know, you gave
which
me
is
this
fantastic.
weird look, so I wondered if you had a question. All right, seeing
Glad to have
none.
him aboard.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 43, Commissioners Skaggs,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
McLeod,
Yes.
Sparks,
Yes.
Teal. Yes. Breeby,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Jones, Commissioners Morgan,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 43 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to 8C, and I believe Commissioner Ponstein is with us. Commissioner Ponstein? Calling you to move Resolution 44.
I make the motion to move Resolution 44, and I just love technology.
I know. Sorry. Me too. I'm right there with you. Moved by Commissioner Ponstein, support by Commissioner
Support by Womack.
Steck. Questions or comments on Resolution 44? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 44, Commissioners Skaggs,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
McLeod,
Yes.
Sparks. Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioners Teal, Breeby,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Jones, Commissioners Morgan,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 44 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to 8D of our agenda. Now call on Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I would like to move Resolution 45 of today's date, Mental Health Court Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration Grant.
Moved by Commissioner Womack, support by Commissioner
Support by Sparks.
Sparks. Questions or comments on Resolution 45? None in the room. Don't see any hands. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 45, Commissioners Skaggs,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
McLeod,
Yes.
Sparks,
Yes.
Teal, Breeby, Coleman,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck, Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Jones, Commissioners Morgan,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 45 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to 8E of our agenda, and I will call on Commissioner Breeby.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I move Resolution 46 of today's date, the KCCA Budget Amendment for Additional Revenue from Kent County Community Action.
Moved by Commissioner Breeby, support by Commissioner
Support by Wooden.
Wooden. Questions or comments on Resolution 46? Don't see any hands. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt,
Can you mute Commissioner Ponstein?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 46, Commissioners Skaggs.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
LeGrand. Yes. Hennessy.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Teal. Yes. Breavy. Yes. Coleman. Yes. Burl. Yes. Ponstein.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jones. Commissioners Morgan.
Yes.
Antor.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 46 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to item 9 of our agenda, public comment related to general county matters. I know, Natasha, you had mentioned we had a email. I don't know if you want to pull that up or
Yes.
if they're here and joining us today.
Yes, Kevin has his hand raised for public comment.
Okay. Kevin, can you please state your first and last name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Kevin Ray, 8670 Wildcat Run Drive, Northeast, Rockford, 49341. Several months ago, I spoke before this body regarding a concern that the county health department was not looking at data about new COVID cases accurately. That concern has since been confirmed when the director of the state health department acknowledged in a December 7th press conference that new case rates can be affected by testing levels. Today, I bring to you another concern. The county health department continues to engage in activities that are extraordinary relative to its stated mission, including requiring parents of school children to report their family's health status to their school and the county on a daily basis, requiring the provision of contact information for people exposed to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, requiring the use of face masks by apparently healthy school children and others, routinely or randomly testing apparently healthy children and adults for a pathogen merely for the privilege of engaging in a sport, work, or other activity, and limiting the gathering of people in various settings. The authority to require such mitigations extends from section 333.2253 of the Michigan Public Health Code, which states that if the director determines that control of an epidemic is necessary to protect the public health, the director by emergency order may prohibit the gathering of people for any purpose and may establish procedures to be followed during the epidemic to ensure continuation of essential public health services and enforcement of health laws. As indicated by a plain reading of the law, any of the mitigations I previously listed beyond prohibiting the gathering of people can only be done to ensure continuation of essential public health services. However, neither the county nor the state health department has enumerated any such services that might be jeopardized if these mitigations were ceased, especially in the current and novel situation of more than half of Michigan's population being inoculated against the pathogen of concern. The state has recently set targets based on inoculation levels that will trigger the relaxing of these restrictions, which it is presumed that the county health department will follow. However, according to state law, the granting of the authority to order such restrictions hinges on the presence of an epidemic, not the percentage of the population that has been inoculated against a particular pathogen. Even the presence of an epidemic, which is required for even the most basic of mitigations, which is limiting the gathering of people, now appears to be questionable. For instance, we currently have a little over 2,100 COVID positive patients hospitalized in Michigan, which is probably close to the peak number we had there with the flu 3 years ago, according to statistics from the CDC, but no epidemic was declared then. While the county can point to the Whitmer administration as leading on these measures, we don't know what kind of political aims or other interests might be driving part or all of the state's policies at this point. And the fact that the state health department may also be operating outside the law will not shield the county if it continues cooperating with the state past the point at which a reasonable person would conclude that an epidemic no longer exists. I strongly suggest that the county health department continually make its own assessment as to whether a situation that triggers the authority to require these mitigations exists and cease to enforce them or cooperate with the state's efforts to do so if it determines that such a situation no longer exists.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments today. Any other public comment?
There is one other hand raised. It is Anna Diaz.
Welcome, Anna Diaz. Please give us your address, please. as well. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my address is 1120 Monroe Street, Northwest, Grand Rapids. Again, my name is Anna Diaz. I'm the Vice President with Community Rebuilders, and we are coming back to commissioners to discuss the Kent Together program. The pandemic has resulted in serious consequences for those with fewest resources. For people without homes and living on the streets or in emergency shelter, the pandemic has increased health risk and compounded community challenges in helping them to find safe and stable housing. Nearly 14 million adults in rental housing, in other words, 1 in 5 adult renters, are currently behind in their rent payments, according to census data. Temporary eviction moratoriums will end in Michigan by the end of June. Difficulties paying rent are particularly prevalent for Black and Latino renters. 31% and 26% of whom respectively report that they had fallen behind on rent. The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting economic crises have brought to light the fundamental role housing plays in people's lives and the life and death implications when they cannot afford rent. Housing vouchers and other rental assistance end homelessness for thousands of people each year and lift millions out of poverty, improve outcomes for children, and improve overall well-being for adults. This evidence underscores the importance of incorporating investments in this vital resource and program. Recognizing this, we ask that the Kent County Consolidated Plan include comprehensive housing assistance that includes continued funding for the Kent Together program. We ask that you reconsider the tenant-based rental assistance allocations. As it currently stands, funding for this program has been eliminated, and there are no other additional resources in place for this program or this funding resource. As it stands, the Kent Together program will end on December 31st. Also, I would like to add an open invitation. Community Rebuilders is more than willing to meet with any commissioners, either individually or in small group settings, to discuss the outcomes and the impact this program has had for Kent County residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Any other public comment today?
It does look like there is one more hand raised, Miranda Van Zegeren.
Miranda, please give us your address. Welcome, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My address is 1120 Monroe Avenue Northwest, Grand Rapids, Michigan 49503. My name is Miranda Van Zegeren with Community Rebuilders, and I would like to speak about some significant data related to the impact of the Kent Together program and its importance in our community. Kent Together prevents and resolves episodes of homelessness through the provision of tenant-based rental assistance, supportive services, and housing stabilization. 24% of households entered from places not meant for human habitation or emergency shelter, and 76% were at imminent risk of losing their housing within 14 days or less. Those entering the program with imminent loss of housing are not often leaseholders, but are households who have no stable residence and lack the supports and financial resources to obtain and maintain housing without Kent Together assistance. It's a different population than what is served by CERA or other eviction prevention funds. Households are evaluated to ensure they meet but-for criteria, meaning that they will be literally homeless but for Kent Together assistance. Kent Together serves vulnerable households so they can access affordable housing of their own choosing. 73% of households had a prior episode of homelessness, and 98% of these households exited Kent Together with permanent and stable housing. On average, households with a prior history of homelessness had 3 previous homeless episodes, with their housing crisis ultimately resolved through Kent Together assistance. Kent Together continues to serve vulnerable populations. 34% of households served had a history of domestic violence, 10% were veterans, 13% were youth-led households, and 22% of head of households had a disabling condition. Kent Together not only provides voucher financial assistance, but also provides support services to increase a family's self-sufficiency and address needs coming from the social determinants of health. We use the social determinants of health assessment to address health equity, connect Kent Together consumers to appropriate resources, and improve access to healthcare, nutrition, education, and economic stability. In the Kent Together program, there were 191 needs this year related to the social determinants of health that were identified by consumers. Through the support of the Kent Together program, participants were able to resolve 97% of these needs. Vulnerable households receive supportive services in areas related to self-sufficiency, including referrals to transportation, medical and mental health treatment, and employment, so they can maintain housing on their own long-term. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Miranda. Any other public comment today?
There are no other hands raised.
All right, we will move on to commissioner reports. Any official reports today? None in the room? Anyone from virtual world with a commissioner report?
Commissioner Wooden.
Oh, Commissioner Wooden. I
Sorry.
can't see you, sorry.
I have a report from the kids' table.
All
I wanted to report that KCCA's governing board met previously, and one of the matters that we discussed and was opportune given the public comment that was given, we inquired about Community Rebuilders' comments around the home consolidation plan and the home-based or the tenant-based rental assistance that comes from home funds, and it was shared with us from staff, and this was followed up with a communication sent, I believe, to the whole board at the end of April, that the reason for the change in the home consolidated plan was due to the increase in emergency shelter grant funds that would essentially make the program whole. I could be misunderstanding this, but what I am wondering is, has that communication been made clear enough to Community Rebuilders to ensure that the funds have been, while not coming from home, they are now coming from a different pot of money? And has there been any communication from Community Rebuilders that the ESG grants are different in their requirements, thus creating an unintended consequence? Forgive me for turning my report into a question, but given the comments given, I thought it was prescient.
It appears not, so we will certainly circle back and make sure they understand the ESG factor. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other commissioner reports today? All right, I only have one. Our administrative search committee is meeting tomorrow from 10 to 12. We'll be reviewing our first round of resumes. It is an open meeting. I highly encourage everyone to attend via Zoom if possible. We are going to be over in 311, so our physical space is limited, but of course it is an open, transparent meeting, and would encourage you all to attend. With that, we will move on to miscellaneous. Item 11, any commissioner miscellaneous today? Anyone in virtual? Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. We're nearing the end of the extended period to turn in your taxes, and I work with an organization, New Development, and works with Davenport College and other partners. So we do help people who are lower income with their tax returns. And as we had our last session with people on Tuesday night, we have served 968 households, completing 910 returns, and have returned almost $1.3 million back to the community by this help to lower income people with their tax returns. I'm really pleased with this report.
Thank you, Commissioner Hennessy. Any other commissioner miscellaneous today? Commissioner Brevi.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I just wanted to reach out and give a big thank you to staff. They've really fitted this room appropriately for our size group, and I would highly encourage the rest of the commissioners that are attending via Zoom to join us in person, and they can feel comfortable here. So I look forward to seeing you all in the future soon.
Thank you, Commissioner Brevi. Any other commissioner miscellaneous today? Don't see any in the chat. All right, I just have one that I was remiss to mention last meeting, and that was to praise and highlight the Lowell wrestling team, who I know Commissioner Skaggs always has these reports, but we kick your butt in wrestling. So I don't even know if you do either, but if you did, we would. So I just want to mention they shattered their seventh straight record with an 8th straight win in the Division II state champ title, and what's even more impressive is their team average GPA is 3.98, which is amazing. And what is additionally amazing is they had team member named Easton Lyons on that team, who is a third-generation Lowell wrestler. So with that, I just wanted to mention that.
It is not 3.98.
Close, close. So with that, I will call on Commissioner McLeod for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting until the next date of May 27th at 8:30 a.m.
Moved by Commissioner McLeod, support by Commissioner Breve. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
I am Kent County.
I am Kent County.
I am Kent County.
We are 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 Kent County.
Bayard, Kent County. Ami, Kent County.
Somos Kent County.
Mas Ira, Kent County.
We are Kent County. We are Kent County. We are Kent County. Oh yeah.